Okay, you can go say hi.
No, that's all right. Hi. Have I met you before? I don't think so.
I was here when
Cabaret? No, I think
Earlier this actually was
last February. It was Valentine's Day.
last year I did my one about my Italian family.
It looks
Maybe
so
I
familiar,
should
but I
sign up for
can't.
your newsletter.
Yeah. We all do on that, right? Because we always run into each other, right? Liza and George and Patrick is here.
Okay. Do you know Stephanie? Are you here?
I do.
Okay.
Rob, are you ready for me? Hello, everyone. Welcome to CSL Kauai. Welcome to our meet and greet the New Thought leaders. Just on that note, next year we're going to be doing the entire year on the New Thought, but the modern New Thought. So we're talking Wayne Dyer, Brene Brown. You know, we're going to be doing just not that we didn't love this last year, but we thought we'd try something very different. But a couple of things we have to say. First of all, some announcements. Vote, vote, and vote. Vote, and then when you get done voting, vote again. But then at night,
No, don't tell them that.
what's that?
Early and often.
Early, and yes. And we already voted because we'll be out of town, so that will be wonderful. But voting is so important, as you know, we're speaking to the choir here. But when you get done voting, you can come here that night, and Reverend Diane will be leading a meditation from 6:30 to 7:30, so we can do whatever we need to let go of and release by 6:30. We will do that. Also on November 15th, was anybody here for our power speakers last week? I mean, the four, yeah. Well, we're having our November one, and it's Power of the Heart. We have William will be speaking, and we have Sue Buckley, and we have Janice, and we have Elizabeth Diamond. So we have another one, and this is the energy of
Gratitude.
gratitude. I'm glad you do that because I did forget in that moment. And then November 18th, right after service, Meg, hold tight. This is happening. November 18th, right after service, we're having our potluck Thanksgiving for CSL Kauai. So make sure to come to that. And we have donation baskets out today. It just helps us to keep continuing these wonderful events. And then I have, last but not least, we have, this one's already been sold. But if you do want the Neville Goddard reader, we will order it for you. You just have to give us your name at the end of the evening. And if you've been around here long enough, we all know that Joe Dispenza is Rev Rita's guy, and we have only one copy left of that. So there you go. Enough of me.
All right. So,
Of course.
yes,
Did the power talks for December get decided on what the topic was going to be?
not yet.
Yeah,
We'll let you know.
it's something with gift. I haven't.
Yeah, it's going to be something to do with gift. The gift.
The gift of yeah.
All right, everybody. Before we introduce Stephanie for the evening, let's just take a moment to just take a deep breath and center ourselves here and now. And I just give gratitude in advance for this amazing evening that we get to share, and for the mind of Neville Goddard and the wonderful presentation that I already know is occurring that Stephanie is sharing with us tonight. I know the evening flows perfectly, and we each receive the inspiration that is ours to receive, and that there is just a perfect unfoldment, a perfect flow. So I just give gratitude for that, and know that we are just blessed in every moment as I just take this word and release it into law and let it go as we affirm together. And so it is. Yay. So here is Stephanie Starrett. Starr.
Yes, I go by Starr, but my name is Stephanie Starrett, and I'm a practitioner for the science of mind. And and I've had really lots of fun to put this together because I studied Neville Goddard for a couple of years out of my life, and before I came on to science of mind. And he has some wonderful things to do, to say that actually healed a portion of me when it came to religion. I fell away from mainstream religion because it just didn't, I felt like I'd graduated. They couldn't teach me anything more that I already knew. So in the meantime, I also threw away the Bible. And Neville Goddard brought it back to life for me. And he made me understand that it wasn't literal, that it was metaphysical, that it had a message. And so it's been fun getting back into it after probably about 6 years. So with that said, I'm going to try and tie in a little bit about Neville Goddard and quantum physics and biocentrism, which came into being in 2017. This is real science that is actually proving that consciousness is something more than we ever thought it was. You know, we just haven't ever put it to the test like Neville has done. Anyway, so that said, I'm going to just start. I'm going to start with a quote that Neville wrote in his book Resurrection. Chance or accident is not responsible for the things that happen to you, nor is predestined fate the author of your misfortune or fortune. Your subconscious impressions determine the conditions of your world. The subconscious is not selective. It is impersonal and no respecter of persons. The subconscious is not concerned with truth or the falsity of your feelings. It always accepts as true that which you feel to be true. Feeling is the assent of the subconscious to the truth of that which is declared to be true. Because of the quality of the subconscious, there is nothing impossible to a person. Whatever the mind of that person can conceive and feel as true, the subconscious can and must objectify. Your world is fashioned, and a change of feeling is a change of pattern. And I thought, wow, okay, so everything I can see, then I did it, you know? That tweaked my imagination when I first started with Neville. You know, how am I creating this? What did I do to make this happen? So Neville Goddard was perhaps the last century's most intellectual, substantive, and charismatic purveyor of the philosophy generally known as New Thought. He wrote more than 10 books under his pen name Neville. He was a popular speaker on metaphysical themes from the late 30s until his death in 72, somewhere up towards 2,500, 3,000 people at a time. Neville had an uncommonly sharp intellect, and being self-educated, had a spiritual vision that was bold and total. Everything you see and experience, including other people, is the result of your own thoughts and emotional states. He wrote, "Change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. Do not try to change people. They are only messengers telling you who you are. Revalue yourself and they will confirm the change." So I thought that was pretty cool. Each of us dreams into existence an infinitude of realities and outcomes. When you realize this, Neville taught, you will discover yourself to be a slumbering branch of the Creator, clothed in human form and at the helm of limitless possibilities. His thought system influenced a wide range of spiritual thinkers and writers, from the mystical iconoclast Carlos Castaneda to Wayne Dyer's last book, A Wish Fulfilled, and best-selling author Joseph Murphy, but I am not sure I'm familiar with Joseph Murphy. I'm going to have to look into that. He even now has ardent following connected by widespread digitized lectures and books on YouTube. More still, his reputation is growing and his mystical teachings are found to conform with key issues in today's quantum physics. Yet little is known about this spiritual teacher who exerted so much unusual pull on the American spiritual scene of the latter 19th century. Neville cultivated an air of mystery which has contributed to the intrigue and questions around his ideas and where they came from. Neville Lancelot Goddard was born February 19, 1905, on the then British Protectorate of Barbados in the town of St. Michael to an Anglican family. Born into that family of 9 boys and 1 girl, Neville was very early singled out for greatness. While at the beach with playing with his brothers near an old sea hut, a seer approached them and one by one told their fortunes. All but Neville was destined for normal jobs and lives. Neville, she said, was chosen by God to perform a special mission. Neville went on to become a New Thought teacher, only his style was nothing like the teachers of his time. He came to the table with something completely new. He had studied the Bible inside and out. He was a wordologist. He understood words and their root meanings. He had arrived to the conclusion that the stories of the Bible were not historical readings or events, but were lessons laid out by wise men long ago to teach humanity how to use the powers of our minds, and to realize that Christ resided not somewhere above us, but inside our own minds as our subconscious mind, and that God was our awareness of being, our imagination. In 1950, a gossip columnist described young Neville's life as enormously wealthy, and he laughed because his family, they were told, like the media does, they overextend everything, and they said that he possessed a whole island. His family possessed this whole island, and he said the truth was far more modest. His own English childhood home was happy but threadbare. There was constant jostling among the brothers for clothes and second helpings at the dinner table. Neville came to New York City at the age of 17 to study theater and led a successful career as a vaudeville dancer and Broadway actor. He toured America and England with dance troupes, but his theater life was a hand-to-mouth, and he supplemented his income by working as an elevator operator and a shipping clerk. His acting ambition began to fade as he encountered an alluring range of spiritual ideas, first with his self-styled occult groups, and later with the help of a life-transforming mentor, Abdullah. Abdullah was a turbaned Ethiopian-born rabbi and had the air of kismet, according to Neville. When I first met my friend Abdullah back in 1931, I entered a room where he was speaking. And when the speech ended, he came over and extended his hand and said, "Neville, you're 6 months late." I had never even seen the man before, Neville replied. So I said, "6 months late, how do you know me?" He replied, "The brothers told me you were coming and you're 6 months late." According to Neville, the two studied Hebrew, Scripture, and the Kabbalah together for the next 5 years, planting the seeds of Neville's philosophy of mental creativity. Go back one. He taught God is your very own awareness of being and how to use your imagination. Your imagination is every conceivable state of conscious possibility held as a probability until you make it a natural part of you, and then it comes into your view. So that's why you always go with, as Wayne Dyer said, with the wish fulfilled. You think of what you want as if it's already happened, and you stay true to that, and it shows up in your life. It has to. Okay? So Yeah, we've heard the saying that God is omnipotent, omniscient, omniscient, omnipresent. Well, that is our states of consciousness that he's talking about right here. They've already been created. Every conceivable thing that you can even think of, that you haven't even thought of, that maybe somebody else thought of, has already been, it's already been created. And so it's not like we have to go out and create something. We need to be in alignment with what we want. We need to feel it. And when we start feeling it and feel it as natural, as like, oh, of course I'm rich. It's the most, I can't even conceive of not being. And you have that feeling of the power, or whatever feeling comes with that, the freedom, whatever that is. You stay true to those feelings. And no matter what shows up, Neville always taught that appearances are the illusion. They're the past. They're not set in stone. And when you're confronted with an appearance, a circumstance in your life, and you recognize that it doesn't feel good, what's telling you that it doesn't feel good? What is that in you that's saying you're not feeling good? It's pointing out that feeling of yuck, okay? It's not the feeling itself. It's actually your high self going, not this, not this. And so change your state of mind to something else, and you notice that you start feeling better, and your high self or your spirit is going, yes, this, more of this, more of this. So we can learn to not let circumstances rule our lives. We're more powerful than that. We can change our circumstances anytime we choose. And Ernest Holmes taught that choice is our tool. We get to use it. And if you want to feel good, find a feeling that feels good. I don't care what kind of feeling it is. It could be for a puppy. It could be for anything. But practice that feeling. Practice that feeling. And it does get stronger. And yeah. He taught that Jesus Christ was not a man. That was very strange for the 1950s because religion was a huge thing back then. But he taught that Jesus Christ was actually inside you, and it was part of you, and that there's nothing that's why you can forgive yourself so easily, because it's really, it's you experiencing things, but it's really the Christ self within you. It's not Jesus the man in you. It's the Christ office. It's the Christ consciousness that actually helps you to be able to envision bigger and greater things. His first understanding of the power of creative thought came when he was living in a rented room in Manhattan's Upper West Side during 1933. He was depressed. The theatrical career hadn't gone so well. His pockets were empty. He felt like a failure and said later, I was in theater and made money one year and spent it the next month. He ached to spend Christmas with his family in Barbados, but he couldn't afford to travel. So Abdullah had told him, live as though you're there. So wandering the streets of New York City, Neville thought from his aim, not of it, but from it, as if he were already there. And this is what he would later urge his listeners. He adopted the feeling that he was really, truly at home on his native island. He said, Abdullah taught me the importance of remaining faithful to an idea and not compromising, he recalled. I wavered, But he remained faithful to the assumption that I was in Barbados and had arrived first class. And one morning before the ship was ready, the last ship was ready to depart from New York for Barbados, Neville received a letter from a long, out-of-touch brother. In it was $50 and a ticket to sail first class. Believe that you already possess your goal, and you will. Man moves in a world that is nothing more or less than his consciousness objectified. He concluded, if that's true, why has this principle been discovered by so few people? It's all about being able to see your goals clearly with an inner eye. And then you need to lull yourself into a state of mind of you're just about ready to nod off to sleep. So you're still conscious, but you can have a picture. You've created a picture, you know what you want, and then you cut a piece of it out, like a still from a movie. You cut one thing out and you make it so real that you can actually feel your hand shaking someone else's hand in congratulations over something that you've won or that you've achieved, or a new business venture, or whatever it could be. It could be anything. You just take something out of that, and then you, it's like after the fact. It's already happened. Okay, so you're actually congratulating, somebody's congratulating you or something like that. And Ernest Holmes, he said the same thing, only in different words. He says, so plastic is mind, so receptive, that the slightest thought makes an impression upon it. People who think many kinds of thought must expect to receive a confused manifestation in their lives. If a gardener plants 1,000 kinds of seeds, he will get 1,000 kinds of plants. It's the same thing. So you just learn to focus and bring it down to exactly what you want and stay true to that, okay? No matter what you see. Another couple of things. I love these two men, and they were contemporaries. They were teaching the same kind of things in a different way at the same time. Neville said, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and observe the route your attention follows. In other words, follow the breadcrumbs. You see somebody that said something, and you just go, oh, if I do that, that's going to take me here, So you don't really even have to know how it's going to be taken care of, because in one of his writings, Neville said, God has ways you know not of. And, Holmes wrote, I do not want, I love into my experience all I desire, which means he just puts his passion and feeling into it, and that's what makes it happen. That's what makes it come up. Ernest Holmes also wrote, true imagination is not fanciful daydreaming. It is fire from heaven. So imagination is much grander than, I was a product of the 50s. I went to school in the 50s, my grade school and everything, and we got in trouble. We got in trouble for daydreaming. We got in trouble for imagining. We got in trouble for everything, And it's like that was everybody trying to squelch the imagination out of the child. And I say, let it go, let it bloom, just let it go. It is not to be confused with will, however, and this is something I found interesting with Ernest Holmes. I looked up the word imagination in the back of the book, and I really had to ponder this for a while. I really had to understand what he was trying to say. Our will is only a directive. Our will cannot create anything. We can use it only to direct our thoughts. We never will anything into being. Only the imagination can stir creative forces that bring our desire to form. I really had to sit with that for a little while because I didn't know if I had strong willpower or weak willpower, or, you know. And then, so what I finally got out of it was, if I could use my will to direct my focus to my desire and let go sufficiently enough, then God would make it happen. And by God, I don't mean a God upstairs on a throne. It's my own imagination will take care of everything, and it will come about. And I just have to trust myself. I have to trust that what I want, I can have. Because in the teachings of Science of Mind, I already have everything. In the teachings of the Bible, God has already given us everything. And so, how far do I believe that? Logic is your directive, your will. Logic will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere. Einstein. So the difference and the similarities of Neville and Ernest Holmes. With Neville, the imagination is the Christ self within, and consciousness is God the Father. Everything is within, and what you see is an outpicturing of your own consciousness. Please don't beat yourself up. You are responsible for your life, however. And he taught the law of assumption, imagination, and 3 steps to manifest your desire. Feeling is the key in imagination, and he taught the Bible as a roadmap of consciousness. Ernest Holmes taught the mental equivalent, which is similar. It's like if you want something, you have to have that mental equivalent inside of you that it's natural for you to have that. And otherwise, you're not going to get something you don't even know anything about. Planting seeds of your desires, that you are at choice always, that you are responsible for your life. He brought the truth from every thought system into one arena. He used spiritual mind treatments as a 5-step process, and he wrote The Science of Mind and Spirit. And so they had similar things. Now, if you can imagine it has already been created, would you step into it? Will you step into it? I mean, sometimes we have to ask ourselves, if I can imagine it, what's holding me back? You know, and start questioning your own belief systems. Why don't I believe that I can do this? If I am made in the image of God, doesn't that mean I'm all powerful? Then what is my problem? You know? So I've had to go in and I've had to do a lot of soul searching in myself and let go of lots of beliefs that. Now, Neville had, like everybody that is out in the public eye, he had his naysayers. He had the people that talked about, they were skeptic, okay? Now, there was, back then there was lots of words out, and occult was one of them, the occult, okay? It was relating to magic, astrology, or any system claiming to use the secret or supernatural powers or agencies beyond the range of ordinary knowledge or understanding, like mysterious, secret, disclosed, or communicated only to the initiated. There was a little-known book from 1946 of an occult philosopher, Israel Regardie. He took the measure of the burgeoning creative mind new thought movement that was happening in the early 1900s, and he he really zeroed in on all the movements, including unity, Christian Science, religious science. He paid special attention, though, to Neville Goddard, whose teaching he felt reflected both the hopes and the pitfalls of New Thought philosophy. Rigardi believed that Neville possessed profound and truthful ideas. Yet he felt that these ideas were proffered without sufficient attention to training or practice. Could the everyday person really control his thoughts and moods in the way Neville prescribed? In his book, The Romance of Metaphysics, Rigardi wrote, Neville's method is sound enough, but the difficulty is that few people are able to muster up this emotional exaltation, this intellectual concentration, which are the royal approaches to the citadel of the unconscious. As a result of this definite lack of training or technique, the mind wanders all over the place on 1,001 things totally unrelated to the I am are ever before their attention. Neville offered his listeners and readers simple meditative techniques such as using the practice of visualization before going to sleep, or reenactments of small, idealized, imaginal pictures symbolizing one's success, like receiving an award or congratulatory handshake. But Rigardi reasoned that as a dancer and actor, Neville possessed a unique control over his mind and body. A dancer must, of necessity, relax. So he knew this, and so he believed that he doesn't fully and consciously realize that the average person in his audience doesn't know the mechanism of relaxation, doesn't know how to relax. And I have to agree with a little bit of that, because part of my training, like going through all of these works and really loving every book that he wrote and everything, it was really difficult for me to get that one picture, get that high feeling, get that, and do it for a consistent amount of time. And I do believe that's why I came to the science of mind, because the science of mind taught me how to focus my thought. It taught me how to bring it down and just with the 5 steps and just really stay with each step until I understood each step. And so I have to agree a little bit with what Rigardi is saying. So in Neville's 1961 book, The Law and the Promise, he supplied a plethora of letters from people who said had achieved success using his methods. As one reads these passages, however, another impression emerges. Student after student was concerned with ardently material goals, such as a new house, a new car, a new suit, cash in the pocket. But this was not Neville's aim. In a lecture in 1967, Neville drew an intriguing contrast, and this is where he gets into the Bible, and he really does describe each story in the Bible as a metaphor, as each name as a condition that is happening within consciousness, and your what's happening within you to change that. So he wanted to move beyond the material world or its wealth. One must know that wealth. But to Neville, and this became the cornerstone of his philosophy. Material attainment was merely a step toward realization of much greater ultimate truth. Know ye not that ye are gods? In a complex interweaving of scripture and personal experience, Neville told of the law and the promise that each of us is a Christ waiting to be liberated through metaphysical rebirth. This is the true symbolic meaning of the crucifixion, which God became man, so that man could someday know himself as God. Our imagination, Neville taught, is God's seed. He saw the literal and final truth in Psalms 82:6. Ye are gods. His lecture audiences, however, seemed to prefer the earlier message of affirmative mind success, or what he called imaginism. Many listeners and mystics lamented they're not interested in this framework of faith and faith leading to the fulfillment of God's promise as experienced in his vision and rebirth. Audiences started to drift away. Urged by a speaking agent to abandon them, or you'll have no audience at all, a student overheard Neville saying, "Then I'll talk to the bare walls." So Neville's formula comes, you have to have a desire. You have to have clarity on that. So you need to know exactly what you want. And it's best to do just one thing at a time. It's, try one thing at a time, not, okay, I need health, I need wealth, I need this, I need that, I need a new car, I need this, I need a home, just pick one to start with. Actually look down and see something in that picture as if you were coming from that picture. Like you are the actor in that picture, and you are seeing that, and it's overwhelmingly real. You can feel your hand, you can feel the wind blow on your across your palm. You can do all of this with your senses just by the fact of me saying watermelon. Y'all have tried watermelon, I think, and you know how it tastes right now in your imagination. The best watermelon taste you ever had is going to come up, and the worst can come up, okay? You can use all of these senses. You can touch it, and you can feel it in your imagination right here. You can hold it in your hand. You know how heavy it is. So use these kind of qualities when you're coming up with your picture of what you want. Feel the excitement. Hear what your friends are saying in the thing. Hear your friends exclaiming, "Oh my God, did you hear so-and-so did this and this and this and got this, and wow." Hear that happening in your creative still that you're creating. Lull yourself to sleep. Allow your mind to drift into a state close to sleep but not sleep. See yourself and your desire in your imagination. Take one small scenario and focus on that without forcing it. Then drift off to sleep. Let the subconscious mind do the work. The subconscious mind has then something to focus on all night long instead of everything else that went on during your day. The law of assumption is to assume the wish is already fulfilled. Remember, it is done unto you, and don't think about it. Think from it. So know what you want. This is an obvious statement. If you don't know what you want, then it really doesn't matter what you get. An unfocused desire creates few results. On the other hand, a clear, definite desire creates a clear objective, something specific to work on. Decide on an action that you would expect to encounter following or after your desire has been fulfilled. This could be a congratulatory handshake or receiving a check, sleeping in your bed in your new home. The act or scene that you chose should not involve seeing your desire being completed, but should imply that it has already been completed sometime in the past. A single short action or scene is better than a long, elaborate scene or many actions, as it's easier to focus on that one thing. More involved actions tend to allow the mind to wander. Then get into a relaxed state of body and mind. Relaxation gives you access to your subconscious mind and makes it more receptive to the images you have created in the previous step. Relaxation allows your brain waves to slow down to the alpha or theta state, both of which are very receptive to visual imagery. And then replay the action or short scene decided on in step 2 and do so over and over while in your relaxed state. As you play the image, give it as much sensory vividness as possible. Feel your imaginary body moving. Feel your imaginary hand in the handshake. In your mind's eye, see the new bedroom around you. It is done unto you as you believe. How many of you believe that? Yeah. So how many of you believe that when it's yucky? Yeah. So under the law of assumption, the world that you see depends not so much on what is there, but what the assumptions you make when you look at it. Your assumptions are that which you believe, feel, think, or consent to. This was one of Neville's sayings all the time. I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. And so imagine saying that all the time. I mean, you're going to start living that. In my Father's house, there are many mansions, multiple states of being already created that I kind of talked to a little bit earlier about. Neville opened up the Bible to me in fascinating ways that I had past believed as nothing more than a history of a myriad of wars and judgments. I no longer had a limited arena in which to play. Now I could train my mind and stay in tune and focus with what he was saying. So, is there any questions so far about anything that you'd like to ask? Okay.
When you said you didn't believe Jesus was a man, were you saying literally you didn't believe Jesus lived?
What was written was he did not believe that Jesus was a man. He does not believe that there is a past. He only believes in the present moment and in the imagination. And the past that was written about is, sorry about that. The past that was written about, in terms of the Bible and stuff like that, it's designed, if you get behind his thoughts and if you go into studying his words and stuff. For instance, one thing, and it's, I'm going to give this book away. This is a 14-page book that Neville wrote, and it has everything in it that you need to know in 14 pages. And he says as much in the beginning. He got rid of all of the extraneous stuff. But he said, like for instance, I am. What is that? It's the name of God. It's the only name of God that we know for real. We can trace it back. We can do our, we can go on a discovery of ourselves. We can go into inquiry. We can inquire about all of our belief systems. And we will inevitably come to the point where the only thing that you know for sure is that you exist, that you are. That all you can think of is that I am. Okay, so I is God, and am is Jesus Christ. I and my Father are one. I am. The story of Mary, the Virgin Mary, in the Bible, which people go around Christmas and putting the baby on the altar or whatever, and the horses and the donkeys and everything around. Mary is the virgin, but she is a virgin idea. She is an idea in your imagination that you want to give birth to. Okay, and it is a virgin because it's a new thought for you. right? And so it is your virgin, it is your child that you are going to give birth to. And it has not been yet impregnated because you haven't spent the amount of time to focus and to go into the sort of gestation period where you sometimes can take a moment, and sometimes it can take, 9 days. Sometimes he had a story where he went into the Army. Neville got enlisted, or not enlisted, he got, what do they call it when they automatic? Drafted. He got drafted, and he went, oh, no, I'm not supposed to be in the Army. So he went and filled out papers, okay? And he used this method to see himself not in the Army. He came up with this, it took 9 days. He had an honorable discharge in 9 days. And the first day they told him, absolutely not. Of course you're not going to get out, 9 days later, he was out with an honorable discharge. So this stuff it's real, and he's tested it. Like with Mary, it's like as you read the story, as you read his definition of who Mary is, what the word Mary means, and the conception, what conception means, and all of this stuff, it just brings it right down to you and your consciousness, and this is what you're doing. And he's showing you how you're doing your life. Okay, is there any more questions?
Here you go, Ruth.
Okay, go ahead.
You got to take the
There is so much here where you need to have a fully conscious mind to be able to get into that place.
Well, I think that the only thing that thank you for that. And I do believe that you do, but you take things step by step, right? Precept upon precept. You notice something you want to change about yourself. Yes, you see it already changed, but you still go through the process. We still go through the process. We still have a little bit thing called time that we believe in, okay? And because we believe in it, and because everybody in the world believes in it, we are kind of at the mercy of that. So depending on how much you believe in all of that, you could come about it bit by bit, or just wake up one night and go, I get it. Okay?
Did like we know Ernest Holmes said he took all these different philosophies and brought them together and ideas and everything and came up with this synthesis which we call the science of mind and spirit. How did he get his information? Did he get it through just inspiration? Did he channel? What does he say?
Okay, he didn't channel. He did spend 5 years with Abdullah going over all the Hermetic sciences and all of the Kabbalah and everything about how mysticism worked in the mystical times. And he was taught a lot by Abdullah. And then it was by experience after experience after experience. And then he also got into the etymology of words. And so he traced each word back to their root meaning. So when you read the story of Jacob and his sons, it's a totally different thing than you see. When you read the story of Esau and what's his brother's name? Yeah, Jacob. When you read the two, totally different. One's the unconscious mind, one's the conscious mind. And he points this out as he goes along through his studies. So he wrote book after book, and he just kept up with his own creative mind. And if you do read his books, even if you read one or two, you're going to come up with the same formula. There's only 3 steps. That's all you have to do. And he mentions it in every book. He always drives everything back to those 3 steps of deciding what you want, feeling it as if it's already done, creating a picture, going to sleep just before you're not off, and do it night after night until you get an answer coming through. Something's coming to you from somewhere, and it'll touch you. Go ahead.
The word law of, thank you. Hello. The words law of assumption, are those his very words?
He called it the law of assumption, and so I researched it online. I Googled law of assumption to see if it came up as one of the universal laws, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So I looked up the definitions of assumption to say, well, what does assumption mean? It's to assume. And you can assume the worst, and you can assume the best. You
I
know?
was thinking of Don Miguel Ruiz and the law of assumption from that point of view, which is not necessarily a desirable thing.
Right.
And with the idea of translating that word into knowing. So, somehow assuming seems to me a useless process when you could go right to knowing.
I think it is a process. I think assuming at first will turn into the knowing, especially if you try it once and you know that it works on some level with something, then you are building that up inside you, that knowing. You're building it up from the ground up to where you can actually start having even more faith in it, even more trust in yourself, even more trust in, because your experience is coming into fruition and it's showing you that it's real. Okay? But I think that sometimes you have to start with an assumption.
And the word that you're using is trust.
Trust.
Because without it, you can have the assumption, and if you don't trust it to be...
Yeah, then you're not going to use it night after night. Yeah. Yeah. So you have to learn well, this came up blank. Okay. It shows a picture on mine. Okay, what it is a picture of a seed, like the picture of the planting a seed. Planting a seed. Learn how to keep planting seeds. Henry David Thoreau wrote, "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you have imagined." And there's a man that I follow right now. His name is Ben Tenho. He's about 30. And he's very much into the consciousness. He's very much into a lot of the stuff that he says that you have the ability to do. He says, only courage forges the intelligence. Forges true intelligence. Remember this. Cleverness is useless without the lived experience, which only courage can bring. So, kind of like what you were just talking about, it's like first you have the courage, you use the assumption to create, saying, I know I can do this, and have courage to step out of your normal life, which you're not, for some reason, liking, for whatever reason. You have to have the courage to step into something new, right? And you get to the point, Benteno says, you get to the point when you're working with consciousness that all you're doing is planting seeds, one after another. You start with the next seed, and then it's starting to show up, and you go, okay, what's the next one? And you start planting the next seed, and pretty soon you're just having a joyful life, and everything is coming up roses, and you're just getting one thing after another, after another, after another. He says it's possible, it does happen. Imagination is the soil that brings dreams to life. Remember that this takes practice. You got to get your inner crap out of the way. This is Mr. 2020. Mr. 2020 is online, and he teaches Neville Goddard, him and his wife. She's down in Australia, and he's very down to earth. And you can go to freeneville.com, and there's a plethora of stuff that you can,
Free Neville.
yeah. freeneville.com. There's over 1,000 lectures and articles and videos and all of that stuff on this website. At your command is these 2 books right here, and I have that you can also get online. You can copy them. But I just happen to have a couple here. So anyway, anybody who's really interested in Neville Goddard and the I Am Presence and how that works and how the Bible teaches you through its stories, that's what this book is about. Just see me after. And so the faith of God is inside you. Persistence and self-love are the key. Appearances are the past, and they're reflected outwards. Notice and move forward. Take classes on how to retrain your mind at CSL Kauai.
Wow.
Let us take our bloated nothingness out of the path of the divine circuits. Ralph Waldo Emerson. There are so many older gentlemen that have really, gone down these paths. Reveal who you really are. What I'd like to do next is take this last few little ones. We're probably going to get out here sooner than my 90 minutes, but that's okay.
That's fine.
New to mainstream science is biocentrism. I saw this on a non-dual science website that I belong to. And I looked at it and I listened to him speak, and I thought, maybe I ought to get this, because he's talking about consciousness and Neville Goddard is talking about consciousness. And so it's called biocentrism. How life and consciousness are the keys to understanding the true nature of the universe. What he says in there is there's a couple of things you got to do. There's a couple of things science has left out, and we all know it. Science decided to go one way and said, religion, you can take them and go the other way. Well, this is a marriage of the two. This is coming back together. This is taking the consciousness of man and bringing it back to science and saying, this is, there has to be an observer to watch this happen. That's why the big, huge, the cell thing that they've created, what do you call it? The big thing that they're doing in Europe? Switzerland? Okay. It's a mess because they've spent billions of dollars and they're not proving anything. So why is that? It's because they've left out life and they left out consciousness. And he says in this book, the only thing that's going to bring it all back, if you take all of that and bring it back into consciousness and science and life, you're going to understand everything. And he is a biologist and an MD. And he said also you got to subtract 4 things. Robert Lanza, MD. And it's funny because I bought both of these books. They're both by him. And I read this one first. And this one I split a gut. He is a great writer. He is fun to read. He makes science seem real and doable, and he really makes you a part of it. So I do suggest getting especially beyond biocentrism. He says there's 4 things that we live in every day that don't exist in consciousness anywhere except here on this earth. Okay? Time, space, randomness, and chance. None of those exist. But we blame everything on all of them. Okay, quantum physics, quantum mechanics, it came into, it was back in 1890 when quantum physics was first looked at. And even Einstein looked at quantum physics, and he even tried to devise programs that disproved it and ended up proving it more, but they couldn't explain it. It's because they did not put consciousness in there, nor did they put life in there. They tried to understand it, and it was just a bunch of googly gawk. I mean, it was like, what do you mean 2 + 2 = 5? In quantum physics, it does. But in Newtonian physics, it doesn't. So it does. So Einstein had a real problem with this, a real problem. And he wanted things to be local. He wanted things to be felt, to be material, to be, I can put my mind on this, I can sense it, I can see it. But quantum physics is not. It's non-local. Okay? Just like God is non-local. Spirit is non-local. You can't touch it. You can sense it, you can feel it, you can feel a good vibe. You know, you can feel a bad vibe from somebody's spirit that is a bad spirit, okay? You can walk in a room and go, ooh, I don't want to be here, you know? Or you can walk in a room and just have the time of your life. So when he came out, when Dr. Robert Lance came out and published his book, he said, biology and physics must join forces to make this work. So what he says by the time you get done reading this book is that it will change the way we look at science today. All our children will be taught now imaginal things by these books. This philosophy, this biocentrism, where we include everything, and then kids can get an idea because they always ask questions, and scientists come up with, well, that's just the way it is. That's not an answer. But with consciousness and with biocentrism, it is explainable, and the child will get it, and will understand it, and will be able to create from it. It will understand his own imaginal forces as being more real. So he also proves in the back of the book that death doesn't exist at all. The only thing that exists about death is the people that are left behind are missing the other person. The other person is not gone. It's in another state of consciousness. It's walked through a door. That's very real. Very real. And even Neville Goddard taught it's as real as the world that we're in. And so that's interesting. So like Schrodinger's cat thought experiment, the double slit experiment is often used to highlight the differences and similarities between various interpretations of quantum mechanics. They are still only theorizing about this. Biocentrism explains what their missing links are. These are the two books on biocentrism. Deepak Chopra states on the cover of one of them, an enlightening and fascinating journey that will forever alter your understanding of your own existence. And it does. It helped me put everything that I've learned in science of mind to a more updated version. Instead of thinking back in the 50s, I think more current. And it's like, oh, this is real. So there's 7 principles of biocentrism. And so we're almost done here. What we perceive as reality is a process that involves our consciousness, number 1. Number 2, our external and internal perceptions are inextricably intertwined. They are different sides of the same coin and cannot be separated. We know that here. Number 3, the behavior of a subatomic particles and objects is inextricably linked to the presence of an observer. Without the presence of a conscious observer, they at best exist as an undetermined state of probability waves. Without consciousness, matter dwells in an undetermined state of probability. Any universe that could of preceded consciousness only existed as a probability state. That was interesting to me. The very structure of the universe is explainable only through biocentrism. The universe is fine-tuned for life. It makes perfect sense as life creates the universe, not the other way around. The universe is simply the complete spatial temporal logic of the self. Time does not have a real existence outside of animal sense perception. It is the process by which we perceive changes in the universe. Space, like time, is not as abject or a thing, is not an object or a thing. Space is another form of our animal understanding and does not have an independent reality. We carry space and time around with us like turtles with shells. Thus, there is no absolute self-existing matrix in which physical events occur independent of life. Oh, it didn't show up. Okay. This is a picture of death. Okay? It's a picture of somebody. It's a picture actually of somebody walking through a door. And on the end, it's walking through, it's dark and it's going down a tunnel. Then there's a door with a white light. And the person, you can see the person walking through it. So that's what the picture was supposed to be. Duality, cause and effect, circumstances are all smoke and mirrors of consciousness. They are in actuality do not exist. No matter how real they appear, they are changeable. Therefore, you as a conscious being rule over all circumstances. Ernest Holmes says you are at choice every moment of your life. So the answer to this question, is death an illusion, is yes. And science has and is currently proving it. It is only real to the ones left behind. And when you read one of his chapters in the back of this, you actually feel that that is the truth. Because he takes it down to he had an experience with like a grasshopper or something. Where he was, being a biologist, he was watching how the grasshopper moved and everything, every little thing, and what it was doing and everything. And it was, the way he explained it, it's like you were right there in the experiment. So I do recommend this book highly. And that's my conclusion for this evening. Thank you. Okay.
There you go.
Death is real in a sense that there is closure to the physicalness of life, right? And that's what we're leaving behind, is the physical body, because that's what belongs here.
Well,
as opposed to the spirit that may travel or transition
that's a thought.
into a different world.
That's a thought, but I'm not saying that that's the absolute truth, what you're saying. What he talks about in the book is that when you understand how he walks you through the consciousness and you've eliminated space and you've eliminated time, it's like consciousness is these little tears, these little stills of pictures. They're not even happening. Like we see time unfolding like this, like we're in the class and we're moving through and all of this. They're actual little pictures, and we're stepping into each frame step by step, but we're doing so fast that it appears to be a moving picture. Okay? So when death occurs, they are just in this picture and then they're in this one. So they have left this state of consciousness and they've moved into another state of consciousness. Nothing has happened to them. They still feel like they have a body. They still feel everything. It's you that got left behind that feels and has put so much emphasis on dead and the dying.
My turn. So that's why I believe we call their name and they're with us. whenever we want them.
Yeah, they're all here. Everything is in consciousness, but you have to think more vast.
Yeah.
That even you are more vast than this
Sure.
physical body. You're vast. You're huge.
Yes. And second,
Okay.
I wanted to say, and that's why I'm planning to take my body with me.
Okay. Good job.
There have been those that have done that. And the great thing about it, I like what you just said too, is that that's a good thought, because that's what this is. This is all perception. This is
Yeah.
all thought. There's nobody here, I don't care what PowerPoint we have, there's
Right.
nothing that's going to point to the absolute truth. It's an experience that we
That's
have.
it.
But I do like this idea of death that you brought up tonight through this, because it would only make sense that we are a continuation of what we are right here and right now, and that this flesh that really isn't that strong, it goes through an incredible amount of, pardon the expression, but abuse.
Yes.
And the reason I think it can do that is because it isn't flesh. It is backed by this energy and this spirit, and it moves through to the next thing. So yeah, it's lovely to open up to new ideas that were brought here. Rita, Andriello.
Well, I want to just share Lisa Ferraro and Etika Luckett's experience, because they put it on Facebook, but and they're pretty. This is Etika Luckett, who just passed away last week, just made her transition. But did anybody see this Facebook post? No.
I haven't
Okay.
seen it yet.
Well, basically, as I said on Sunday, she passed playing her guitar. She never lost consciousness, and she consciously told Lisa to look for her. That she left on the full moon purposefully, and she told her exactly where to look for her in the sky, and that she would be there, and she would be this orb that was next to the moon at this degree. I mean, she told her the whole thing. So Lisa went out after she passed at the full moon, and there was this dancing orb right there. So I don't know much about orbs, and I don't know, I don't know, but I know that that's true because it happened, and we saw pictures of it, and I know these two women, and I know what they're like and their
Right.
spirituality and the connection they have to each other. So it said to me, she said, Lisa is very much, not Lisa, Etika is very much present. She is not gone, and
Right.
she feels it. So,
Right.
But then I have another question, and because I don't know that much about death, but I call my father back sometimes when I need him, and he comes, and he helps me, and things happen. They flow. So, but what I wonder about it is, have these people, this is my question, have they gone, and by calling them back, are we keeping them from something, or are they just omnipresent? And they
They're
can
omnipresent.
be, they can be anywhere they want to be. That's the only answer I have, or they're omnipresent.
Yeah.
Multiplicity. I think that is something that we're really finding too, is that, because I used to wonder that too when my brother left and I called him back, and I went, Danny, are you there? And I could feel him and the whole thing, but I said, he goes, what do you want? And I was like, I don't know. I was just kind of like trying this out to see if it really worked. And his response to me was like, don't do that. If you've got something to bring me here, then, but this isn't a magic show, my dear brother, I wonder if I can do that. And then all of a sudden it happened, and then I went, I don't know really what I want. I just wanted to see if I could do it. So I do think there is that multiplicity, that they have went forward in living different experiences, and then can also be here with us. if we
And
call upon
Neville did teach that whatever you can learn about consciousness and life, it's easier to learn it here than it is on the other side. As far as experience going, it actually moves us very, very fast and very, very high the more we stay with, learning that. It actually does move us faster.
Okay, one more.
Well, when my daughter passed away, I went to a ceremony where somebody was, what do you call it?
Channeling?
Channeling. And I asked, when could I talk to my daughter? And the channel said, wait for about 3 weeks because she's transitioning into something new, and give her a chance to do that before you call her. And so I did that.
Some people call it the purification. There's a purification that takes, like all of us, when we move our stuff out. And you have to use the mic.
Okay. So your two books there, my logic tells me that Beyond Biocentrism would come after the centrism.
Yeah,
or
because it was the
biocentrism,
second
but
book.
You seem to like the Beyond Biocentrism better.
I haven't
So
even.
If one was to only get one of those,
I would start with this one.
that's, okay, that's what I
I would start
you
with
would
this
say,
one
which to me is
because
like
I
the
went
second
back to
book.
this one and it's a little dry.
Okay,
This one's a lot of fun. I got a kick out of it. I laughed my butt off.
that's
In some
what I could
places,
hear
because
in
my
you.
brain was really getting the.
And second question, how would you, in your just natural state, define biocentrism on a simple level for us peons?
Well, bio meaning biology, which is us. Okay? Centrism meaning the center of all that is. We are the center of all that is. Life is bio, life is biology. And that's how I would describe it.
And my third question, because I always come in threes, is may I have one of your 14-page books?
Most definitely. Thank you for asking.
You know what? I told her, just how do you want to give these to? And I said, the person that asks for what they want. You want me to give it to her?
Yeah. Thank you. And just to have a little bit of fun, my husband died in, Loya knows about this because she was married to the same man. That's another time.
Now that's biocentrism.
But when he passed away, it was a surprise. I went to get his dinner plate in his room and he was gone. And of course I went into shock right away because I didn't want him to be gone. I wanted him still there. And so I was having I guess I was having a hard time because I was immediately what came to mind is this is not of God. God would not do this to anybody. That's just my thoughts, okay, at the time. God would not create this kind of grief just because he could. It's something that we go through to help us heal, and I agree with that, and it's necessary. But I remember hugging walls, anything that was strong, trees, walls, whatever, that reminded me of the strength of my husband, right? And so it was about, I think, the next day, I had contacted my sister. She's a really dear friend of mine. She's an ex-psychic. She doesn't do any psychic work anymore. But I called her up to tell her that he had passed. And she goes, I had the strangest thing last night. He came, and I was on the couch, and he came, and I looked at him, and I said, what are you doing here? And he says, I can fly! And he says, Steph's having a hard time, so give her a call. So I laugh about that now, but at the time, and it was very nice at the time to hear it, but I still had to go through my years of grief too. So anyway.
Let's give it up for Steph.
Yay.